the Japanese baseball world has just been turned completely upside down. In a series of stunning developments that nobody saw coming, NPB has launched a full-scale investigation and handed down permanent bans to 3 of Samurai Japan's most important players. Manager Ibata has called an emergency resignation press conference that has thrown the entire managerial structure of Japanese baseball into chaos. And Shohei Ohtani, the greatest Japanese baseball player who has ever lived, has been urgently called up to Tokyo, where he spoke just one single word that has sent shockwaves through every corner of NPB. One word. That is all it took. And the entire baseball world is still trying to process what that word means and what it signals for the future of Japanese baseball. Stay with us, because every single detail of what we are about to reveal will leave you absolutely speechless. It began with a leak, a quiet whisper inside NPB circles that something serious was coming. Something bigger than anyone had anticipated. Something that would fundamentally change the landscape of Samurai Japan and Japanese baseball as a whole. For days, rumors circulated among journalists and insiders that NPB had been conducting a confidential investigation into the conduct of several players connected to the national team. Nobody knew exactly how serious it was. Nobody knew exactly who was involved. And nobody could have predicted just how severe the consequences would turn out to be. Then NPB made it official. In a formal announcement that dropped like a bomb across the entire baseball world, NPB confirmed that it had concluded a thorough and extensive investigation into the behavior and conduct of 3 key players from the Samurai Japan roster. The investigation, which sources say had been quietly underway for several weeks, examined a range of serious allegations involving conduct both on and off the field that NPB determined to be fundamentally incompatible with the values and standards of Japanese professional baseball. The verdict was devastating. All 3 players have been permanently banned from Japanese professional baseball, effective immediately. Not suspended for a season, not fined and warned, permanently banned. Their careers in Japanese baseball are over. Forever. The announcement sent an immediate and massive shockwave through the baseball community. Players, coaches, analysts, and fans across Japan and around the world reacted with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and deeply divided opinion. Some praised NPB for taking bold and decisive action to protect the integrity of the game. Others questioned whether permanent bans were justified and called for greater transparency about the nature of the investigation and the specific allegations involved. Sources close to the investigation say that NPB spent weeks gathering evidence, conducting interviews, and carefully reviewing all available information before reaching its conclusions. Officials within the organization are said to have debated the severity of the punishment extensively before ultimately deciding that anything less than a permanent ban would send the wrong message to players across the entire league. NPB released a formal statement confirming the bans but stopped short of disclosing the full details of the investigation, citing the need to protect the integrity of the process and the privacy of all individuals involved. However, insiders say that the allegations were serious enough that NPB felt it had absolutely no choice but to act with maximum force. The 3 players who have been permanently banned were all considered key contributors to the Samurai Japan program. Their absence creates an enormous hole in the national team's roster, not just in terms of talent, but in terms of experience, leadership, and the chemistry that had been carefully built within the squad over many years. For Samurai Japan, the timing could not be worse. The national team is already dealing with significant internal tensions following a series of controversies that have rocked the organization in recent weeks. And now, with 3 permanent bans handed down in a single announcement, the foundation of the entire program has been shaken in a way that will take years to fully repair. As if the permanent bans were not already enough to send Japanese baseball into a complete state of crisis, what happened next made the situation dramatically worse. Within hours of NPB's stunning announcement, manager Hiroki Ibata called an emergency press conference. And what he said in that press conference has caused a stir that is still reverberating through every level of Japanese baseball. Ibata walked into the room with a composed expression that gave nothing away. Reporters and cameras filled every corner of the space, all of them sensing that something significant was about to happen. Ibata sat down, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the assembled media, and spoke the words that nobody in Japanese baseball was prepared to hear. He resigned. Effective immediately. No negotiation. No transition period. No carefully managed handover. Just a clean, final, and absolute resignation from one of the most important positions in all of Japanese baseball. The room erupted. Reporters immediately began firing questions. Cameras flashed from every direction. And Ibata sat quietly through the chaos, waiting for the room to settle before he continued speaking. He explained his decision with the kind of honesty and directness that has always defined his character. He said that following the NPB investigation and the permanent banning of 3 players he had personally selected and trusted, he could no longer in good conscience continue in his role as manager. He said that as the leader of Samurai Japan, he bears ultimate responsibility for the culture and conduct of the team. And he said that when that culture produces outcomes as serious and damaging as the ones NPB has just uncovered, a leader must be willing to accept accountability in the most meaningful way possible. He said resigning is not an act of weakness. It is an act of integrity. Ibata also addressed the players who remain in the Samurai Japan program. He told them that they are not defined by the actions of those who have been banned. He told them that Japanese baseball is bigger than any scandal, bigger than any individual, and bigger than any moment of crisis. And he told them that whoever steps into the manager's role next will inherit a team that still has the talent, the passion, and the fighting spirit to represent Japan with pride on the world stage. His final words at the press conference were simple, quiet, and deeply moving. He thanked Japanese baseball for giving him the opportunity to serve. He apologized to the fans for the pain this situation has caused. And then he stood up, bowed deeply, and walked out of the room without taking a single question. The silence that followed lasted for several seconds. And then the entire baseball world began to talk at once. Ibata's resignation has thrown Japanese baseball into a managerial crisis of historic proportions. The question of who will replace him as manager of Samurai Japan is now the most urgent and most debated topic in the entire sport. NPB officials were reportedly caught completely off guard by the timing and the finality of Ibata's resignation. Sources inside NPB say that while officials were aware that Ibata was deeply affected by the investigation and its outcomes, nobody anticipated that he would resign so immediately and so publicly. The organization now faces the enormous challenge of identifying, evaluating, and appointing a new manager under intense public scrutiny, and within a timeline that nobody had planned for. Several names have already begun to circulate in baseball circles as potential candidates to take over the Samurai Japan managerial role. Former players with strong leadership credentials, experienced coaches from within the NPB system, and even some surprising outsider candidates have all been mentioned in connection with the position. However, sources close to NPB say that the organization is determined not to rush this decision. They are acutely aware that the next manager of Samurai Japan will be stepping into one of the most challenging situations any manager in Japanese baseball history has ever faced. They need someone with not only the tactical intelligence and baseball knowledge to rebuild the team on the field, but also the personal strength and emotional intelligence to rebuild trust, restore morale, and unite a squad that has been deeply fractured by everything that has happened. The managerial appointment process is expected to move quickly given the urgency of the situation. But NPB officials have made it clear that speed will never come at the expense of making the right decision. The future of Samurai Japan depends on it. Meanwhile, players currently within the Samurai Japan program are said to be in a state of deep uncertainty. Without a manager, without 3 of their key teammates, and surrounded by controversy and crisis on every side, the mood inside the squad is described by sources as tense, confused, and deeply anxious about what comes next. And then came the moment that nobody was expecting. The moment that took an already extraordinary story and elevated it to a completely different level entirely. Shohei Ohtani, the Los Angeles Dodgers superstar, the greatest Japanese baseball player of his generation, and the most recognizable athlete Japan has ever produced, was urgently called up to Tokyo for an emergency meeting with NPB officials. The news of Ohtani's summons to Tokyo spread through the baseball world with breathtaking speed. Immediately, speculation erupted from every direction. Why had NPB called Ohtani to Tokyo with such urgency? What did officials want to discuss with him? Was Ohtani somehow connected to the investigation? Was he being considered for a role in the rebuilding of Samurai Japan? And most importantly, what would Otani say? The questions multiplied by the hour, and the baseball world held its breath, waiting for answers. Otani arrived in Tokyo quietly and without fanfare, accompanied only by a small group of trusted advisors. He was taken directly to NPB headquarters, where a meeting with senior officials had already been arranged and was waiting for him. The meeting lasted for several hours behind completely closed doors. No details were released, no statements were made, and nobody who was inside that room said a single word to the media afterward. Then Otani emerged. He walked out of NPB headquarters into the waiting crowd of reporters and cameras with the same calm, unreadable expression that he always carries. Microphones were thrust toward him from every direction. Reporters shouted questions in Japanese and English simultaneously. The noise was overwhelming. Otani stopped walking. He looked at the cameras. He opened his mouth, and he said one single word. That word was omakase. In Japanese, omakase carries a meaning that goes far beyond its literal translation. It means, I leave it to you. It means, I trust you completely. It means, whatever you decide, I will accept and support. It is a word that carries enormous cultural weight in Japan, a word that signals not passive acceptance, but active and deeply meaningful trust placed in the hands of another. The moment Otani said that word and turned and walked away, the baseball world exploded. Analysts, former players, journalists, and fans immediately began debating what omakase means in this context. Is Otani signaling that he will support whoever NPB appoints as the new manager of Samurai Japan? Is he indicating his willingness to play a role in the rebuilding of the national team program? Or is his use of omakase a carefully chosen signal to NPB that he trusts the organization to make the right decisions, and that he will be watching closely to see if that trust is justified? Nobody knows for certain, and that uncertainty is precisely what makes that single word so powerful and so significant. Because when Shohei Ohtani speaks, even when he speaks just one word, the entire baseball world listens. The events of the past 48 hours have left Japanese baseball in a state unlike anything it has experienced in recent memory. 3 permanent bans, a shocking resignation, a managerial crisis with no clear resolution in sight, and one word from Shohei Ohtani that has sent shockwaves through every corner of NPB. The road ahead for Samurai Japan is long, difficult, and deeply uncertain. Rebuilding the roster after 3 permanent bans will require careful planning and bold decision-making from NPB officials. Finding the right manager to replace Ibata will require wisdom, patience, and a clear vision for the future of the program. And restoring the trust and confidence of Japanese baseball fans, who have watched their beloved national team program go through crisis after crisis in recent weeks, will require results on the field that speak louder than any press conference or any official statement ever could. But through all of the chaos, all of the controversy, and all of the uncertainty, one constant remains. Shohei Ohtani is still here, still watching, still connected to Japanese baseball in ways that go far deeper than statistics or trophies or championships. And with one quiet word spoken outside NPB headquarters in Tokyo, he reminded the entire baseball world of something important. He reminded them that he believes in Japanese baseball, that he trusts it, and that he is leaving it, for now, in the hands of the people responsible for guiding it forward. Whether those people will prove worthy of that trust is the question that Japanese baseball must now answer. And the entire world will be watching every single step of the way. Thank you so much for watching. This is one of the most dramatic stories in the history of Japanese baseball, and we want to know exactly what you think. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments section below. What does Otani's one word really mean to you? Make sure you subscribe to our channel right now so you never miss a single update. The biggest stories in Japanese baseball are happening right now, and you do not want to be left behind.